Josephine, respected teachers, Professor Manju and Shija, and my dear friends. In fact, I was suggested to moderate this session, and I was not supposed to speak on SDG as such. And in fact, there were two presentations scheduled for this session. One from my former colleague Josephine, and the other from Jagajeevan, who is again a very close friend of mine. I had worked with both of them in the planning board for a long period of time on issues related to the current topic, SDG, focusing on hunger. And I am also happy to see Mr. Unni here in the audience. I had an opportunity to know about the kind of effort Mr. Unni and other agriculturalists are doing in the state. Now, my idea was that I'll speak very less and then listen to people representing local governments, Jagajeevan and Josephine. But in the absence of Jagajeevan, I think I'll take 5 minutes and introduce some ideas, so that there'll be some discussion apart from on the points Josephine will be presenting. Josephine is a very serious bureaucrat. She is currently chief of the Decentralization division in the planning board. So she, I hope, will be making a very detailed presentation. Again, I think we should limit time so that some time is left to the audience for discussion. Now, my feeling, it is not very serious kind of a comment, but I thought I'll provoke discussion, otherwise in the afternoon people will be very sleepy. See, whenever I listen to the Sustainable Development Goals, I get two impressions. Let me first speak about the first impression. That is, it's a statement of great goals by humanity. We cannot ignore any of these SDGs. These are all very important. And all the countries of the world, humanity as a whole, should be committed to achieving these goals. They are so fundamental. They are so important for human civilization. Hunger, poverty, all the 17 SDGs are so important. On the other hand, if you look at the kind of money that is spent on SDG campaigns all over the world, and the kind of campaign that is being undertaken, I also get the other feeling. I consider, I tend to see it as a legitimization exercise. I consider it as a legitimization exercise for the current regime in the world. Because if you think, as students of economics, as activists, if you think more and more about these SDG, each of the SDG goals, you will find that increasingly, over time, local governments, local communities, provincial governments, regional governments, even nation states are made helpless in achieving these objectives. In fact, government power, state power is getting drained. The power to influence the economy, society to achieve these goals, that power is getting drained over time. This is a major contradiction. On the one hand, these sustainable development goals are great goals. There could not be any compromise on this. There cannot be any second thought on this. These are great goals and these are achievable goals. These are achievable goals. Now we have all the technologies with us. The forces of production have improved significantly over several centuries. So, given the current state of our knowledge of humanity, given the current state of resources that we have, these goals can be easily achieved. We have all the know-how to produce enough food to feed everybody. See, imagine 100 years ago how a worker used to work and now how a laborer is working. The kind of knowledge behind every labor process. The accumulated knowledge we have in the present generation for doing anything. And with the help of such developed productive forces, equipment, technology, resources, it is not at all difficult for us to achieve complete elimination of poverty. It is in the reach of all of us to remove hunger and name each of these sustainable development goals. All this can be achieved. It's very simple to achieve these goals because nobody will claim that we don't have the resources. Nobody will claim that we don't have the know-how. Nobody will claim that humanity as a whole, the world as a whole, is suffering from shortage of resources for achieving these goals. But this contradiction is there. We are not able to achieve this. And many of these goals are becoming more and more distant for majority of the world's population. That's where I see the contradiction. That's where I see that this should be seen as a legitimization exercise. That we all speak about SDG. Everywhere people are expressing and re-expressing their commitment to SDG. We are all shouting slogans against poverty. We are all shouting slogans against hunger. But hunger is not leaving us. We are spreading poverty. We are spreading hunger. We are having more and more problems amongst us. And that's where my point is very important. What about the state government? What about a panchayat? So the kind of influence that a panchayat can have on poverty and hunger. Take the case of a rubber area. Rubber, coffee, tea are very important crops for us. But what can a panchayat do about rubber prices? Rubber prices, coffee prices, tea prices are beyond the control of panchayats. These are globally determined. Many prices are globally determined. And the power of the local panchayat to influence prices, the power of the local panchayat or local corporation, city corporation to influence the circumstances that determine the livelihood of people, that is getting restricted over and over time. And this is true of our government, state governments. We know about the fiscal space that is left to the state governments. When we discuss about state government, we think that we often think that state government is all powerful. State government can take care of everything related to our life. Pension, social welfare, retirement benefits of those people who have been working abroad and they come back, their retirement benefits, their social security, food, wildlife problems. You take problems one by one. Now we think that the state government can address these things. But if you are an economist, if you are a student of economics, we know that the fiscal space that is remaining with the state government is shrinking fast. This is true of local governments, this is true of regional governments, this is also to a great extent true of national governments. National governments, you will say, oh, our Prime Minister is all powerful, one of the big leaders. That is true. India's Prime Minister should be very powerful. But as a nation state, what is happening to the sovereignty of the country? What is happening to the power of the nation state to control the collective fate of Indians? You take the case of India's trade. The ability to control India's trade is very limited. Over time, we have lost most of those rights because of liberalization and globalization. Trade is not with our control. And lot of domestic policies, including tax policies, are now shaped by international understanding. And policy space left to national government is getting limited. And we don't see a movement from among economists, politicians to re-establish these rights. Right to self-determination, right to determine our collective destiny, whether that is getting lost, whether that is getting drained away, is a very important question. And in my opinion, it is getting drained away. We are not maintaining the same kind of independence that we got, say, at the time of independence. Considerable amount of that freedom we have lost. And this is true of nation states in general. Then, in the name of nation, in the place of nation states, who is controlling trade? Who is controlling the collective fate of humanity? Who is controlling the livelihood of people in the locality? That's the challenge social scientists should be addressing. I will say that we tend to believe that our nation state is very powerful, our regional government is very powerful, and they control the politics. They control the kind of production that is going on, that they control distribution that is taking place. Now, if we are true to ourselves, we will find out the fact that nation states and politics in general is losing its meaning. There are larger forces at operation which are controlling things, and many of those things are invisible too. And if you are applying social science techniques, we should make those invisible things visible. We are running after those things which are very apparent and visible. We think that the state government, in fact, no, the entire media discussion in the state, for example, everything is related to the state government. As if the state government is so powerful to determine about our future. It's nothing. So, who determine? What are the forces that determine our education, our politics, our production, distribution? Is a question that social scientists should be raising in a slightly different way. We need to get out of the kind of paradigms that we are used to. We should not be continuing in a nation-state centric paradigm. We should come out of nation-state centric paradigm. We should come out of region-centric kind of analysis of things. we should have the larger context, and only if you bring in the larger context you will be able to address the issue of the so-called sustainable development goals, including poverty, hunger, etc. If you don't know how rubber prices are determined, if you don't know how wheat prices are determined, how the grain prices all over the world is so low in spite of poverty, in spite of hunger, how big capital influence grain prices all over the world. If you don't understand that, we will not be able to address the question of hunger. And if you don't know how the oil is priced, how natural gas is priced, because prices are so key to determination of distribution. Subsidies are not. Subsidies come secondary. All of us are producing a lot of things. A society needs to produce conditions of existence. Produce and reproduce conditions of existence. Now, how production is taking place, how distribution is taking place, who is getting a higher pie and who is not getting, and how that is determined, how prices are formed, wages, what is happening to wages in the world? Wages as a share of income has been secularly declining all over the world. Why? Wages of not only casual laborers, wages of IT workers, wages in general, that's declining over time as a proportion of total income. So my point is this: if you are very sincere about hunger, poverty, environment, gender justice, and other great goals that we define and we take oath about, if you are serious about, you should ask this question: who decides these things? Do we have the right? Others we'll end up blaming the panchayat. The poor panchayat president will be blamed for poverty because he is not running the low cost, the hotel. Because we don't get to see the larger reality. The real reality, we miss it. So I'll stop here. I thought I'll provoke some of you so that some interest is focused on these things. But let me add one more point. This bhashan doesn't mean that we shouldn't be discussing the nitty-gritty of SDG at the local level, at the state level. No, we have certain things we can do. We should do those things. And what can be done at the panchayat level is very important. And we should be doing that. We have all been spending our energy and time to do that. That's very important. What the city corporation should do, city corporation should do. It's not fair. But if you cannot see beyond the city corporation, if you cannot see beyond your Karanavar in the home or your local panchayat, you are missing the bus. Both should be seen in the right perspective. That is my humble submission. Let me now invite Josephine, and after her presentation, we will have plenty of time. I wish you come up with your suggestions. Thank you.
Respected sir, respected chair, dear professors of this college, and my dear students. It's a privilege for me to appear here again. I think 2 years back I was here with a session on tribal development. And not only that, being with students means it is a pleasure for senior people like us, because we can remember about our college days, and now when you are seated here peacefully and listening to all the sessions, I think now the generation is more disciplined. I think all are in a good disciplined mode now. After all, it's an afternoon session also. That is good also. As we get civilized, we should get more disciplined now. Here, Honorable Chair was mentioning about the global scenario about the SDGs. Now our focus has come to SDGs. Though Kerala was working on it deliberately, but nowadays all the nations have taken up in a big way these SDG goals and they are moving towards it, the goals. But Kerala has some advantages in that because of our decentralized planning. Now we are celebrating 25th year. We have celebrated last year 25th year of decentralized planning. Not only that, we have Kudumbashree also here. Kudumbashree also came 25 years back. Because of these systems, we can see visible outcomes of SDGs, or we can see that the indicators or goals are achieved in Kerala. But this is not the situation in India as a whole, as what Chair was mentioning. In India, in near future we cannot achieve these goals, especially our focused goal here, that is hunger free. Well, the statistics from UN itself shows that in near future India cannot achieve these goals, because every day at least 46,000 people should be lifted out of poverty to attain this goal. Every day, if it has to achieve this goal in 2030, every day 46,000 people have to come out of hunger or poverty. Is there a concerted effort from the part of government? The government, I am not criticizing, but we should criticize as social scientists. We have to criticize. What are the all SDG goals have to be, they are giving the states the goals. SDG goals have to be attained, and it is the role of the local governments to achieve all these goals, help the people come out of poverty, and all the other, achieving all the other 16 goals. But what actually happens, and what actually the government does has to be examined. Here, in the last budget session, so many discussions came up, so many people were discussing about the fund flow to the states, the GST compensation and the share of the state government from the divisible pool. Ultimately, the state has to do this, or the local governments have to do or implement things to achieve these goals. But what are the resources coming to the states? Or what is the system built here in terms of GST, and who is gaining out of that? Means the resources are going to whom? Are they coming to the states? Are they going to the local governments? No. Then how can we attain this goal of the very first goal, I should say the very basic goal of hunger-free people or hunger-free citizens? How can we attain this? But the state like Kerala are doing their level best with the limited resources. They are planning it well, monitoring it well, and bringing in people's action. All those things the local governments are doing. Somehow they are striving to achieve this goal. That difference we have to understand when you sit in this session. The local governments are doing their level best to come out of this issue or save the people from hunger or save the people from malnutrition. But what is the support given to the local governments? That has to be examined. And I am not going to the quantum of fund coming to the state or something like that. But here, the statistics shows that 195 million hungry people are there according to UN estimates. And most of the chunk is in India. You know that India is a very populous, second most populous country in the world. So definitely poverty, the number will be more in India. But there you have to ask a critical question: what is done in these terms? How the country is moving towards hunger-free India? See, about again coming the children. the stunted growth, wastage, all those things also in all those indicators also India is ranking first. And all these shows that India cannot come out of this issue even in 2030 as UN has targeted. And also some certain issues have come up with COVID also. And the world has changed after COVID. No, we can demarcate the world before COVID and after COVID. What has happened to the country and what has happened to the working people, as the chair has mentioned, what has happened to them? They lost jobs. Has anything been done to overcome this? Who is the authority to do this? Is there any international body to think about this scenario, or are they intervening in it in that way? People had lost their labor, they have lost their income, their salary and other emoluments they have to receive from the employer. Who is learning about this? Is ILO dealing with this in a proper way, in a concerted way? All these things have to come up in our mind when you learn about SDG goal or to understand more about SDG. There is no agency to look into this. Everywhere, in every nation, people are in revolt against the government because they are losing their income, the high price, the inflation scenario is there in the world. All the nations are experiencing this. Even in Kerala we experience this. But there are measures to curtail this. And all these things I will come later. Here, India is experiencing inflation. Likewise, the world itself experiencing inflation. Normally, we know as economic students, as the inflation rises, our real income is reduced. No, the real things we can purchase out of the income will be reducing, or we can only purchase less baskets of goods for the existing income. This is happening. People are losing their jobs, especially in IT sector. We are thinking the IT sector is blooming, but here what we experience is that the people in IT sector even loses. Twitter, Amazon are losing their jobs. And I am telling all these things because ultimately this will end up in poverty and hunger. Those people who are above poverty line are going to be sunk in poverty in these days. After, that is post-COVID period, COVID and post-COVID period, and also the food security. You might have heard about the agitation of the farmers which were happening in Delhi for almost 1.5 years. They were striking against the government because of the 3 bills passed in Parliament. That was related to food security also. India is a country which is suffering from poverty and hunger. You might have gone to the hunger index and all, which is prepared worldwide. India is in a very pathetic stage. And these bills were passed in Parliament because the big players, the big producers or the corporates in farming, they were allowed to come into the agriculture sector. And already vulnerable farmers will become more vulnerable in that way. So the food security, they were fighting for the food security of the nation as such. Because they knew that when the big producers, corporates come into the agriculture sector, it will normally take away the food crops. And they will go for cash crop. Again, food insecurity and food inflation will happen in India. This was the situation when they went for strike. And how many of us have analyzed in that terms? We couldn't analyze. We thought that farmers, they were simply striking against the government because of the bills. And also the electricity bill was also an issue there. See, all these things, when the government says that SDG goal has to be the hunger, the first goal has to be attained. When the government of India says that, what is the policy they are taking in Parliament? The bills and all coming, is that promotes hunger-free country, or is it aggravate the hunger-free situation in the country? All these have to be analyzed critically in this context. And also one other issue is that we are facing is the low labor productivity. Sir was mentioning it rightly here. What is the labor productivity now? The situations and the technology has advanced like anything. We have everything in fingertips. The extension service in fingertips, everything in fingertips. IT has emerged as anything. It can control everything and anything, but what is the labor productivity now? In Kerala's context, what is labor availability? We are now depending on other states for labor, isn't it? So this is here labor productivity is an issue, and in Kerala the land is scarce, we have to we have to work more for production and productivity. Then only we can sustain the food availability in the state. Here this is happening not only in Kerala, everywhere this labor productivity is a big issue now. So how can we, this sustainability, and if the labor productivity is less, what will happen to the productivity as such? The man's capacity to do manual work is reducing because of many reasons. People are not for manual labor now. They want some other jobs. That is why in Kerala we depend on other states for labor. The migrant or what we say the laborers coming from other states is increasing in Kerala. All the sectors, even in agriculture, even in fishery sector, we are depending on other state laborers. So this is the situation, and it's also troubling also in terms of food security. Then children's nutrition. Child nutrition is a big issue. There are some figures with me. We have 46.6 million stunted children in the country. That is 30.9% of our child population. So the wastage is also shocking, about 23.8%. So this is the scenario. This is in this context only we are discussing this goal. And these are the global scenario what Sir was trying to mention here. When coming to Kerala, see, I have just made a presentation just to make a presentation. I am not sticking on to that presentation, and I want one person to ask me what is sustainable development. What is sustainable development? One of you. One of you can come in boldly. What is sustainable? What is meant by sustainable development? I am not asking about goals and all. You know that 17 goals are there. What is sustainable development? What is the meaning of sustainable development?
And development that meets the needs of the present without compromising with needs of future generation to meet their own needs.
Very good. The exact definition. Without compromising meeting the development needs of the present without compromising the development of the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. This is the definition of, so you are clear in that. Here, can anyone say that in Kerala we are moving towards sustainable development in any context? It can be food, it can be anything else, or out of all of the 17 goals. Can anyone say that we are moving to sustainable development? Niti Aayog has come up with a ranking, and we are in a safe position in majority of our ranks in the indicators, but there are some weaknesses we have to rectify, and we have a score of 75 and comfortably well placed. So Kerala stands first in sustainable development. All these are there. Can anyone cite one example in that? We are moving towards sustainable development. Any context. This context is of hunger free. In COVID, when pandemic was here, it's still here.
Poverty, Kerala has lower
less poverty, that is 0.7%. When the decentralization planning started in India, in Kerala, it was almost 26%. Our poverty rate was 26%. Now we have gone to 0.7. This is one of a big achievement actually. No other state can claim such an advancement in this achievement. Why? How? That is the question. How could we attain this? One of the main reason. What is Kudumbasri? What is Kudumbasri? State poverty eradication mission. Can we attribute this achievement to Kudumbasri?
Yes.
Definitely. Yes. What is Kudumbasri? It's an organization of women for social, economic and political empowerment. It's doing its task well, pretty well, going on well. See, this is one of the reasons. And what else? What else we can attribute this? Healthcare. Then the decentralized planning, isn't it? The decentralized planning is one of the reasons for this achievement. And also the public distribution system, which was always given much importance in the state, even now. During the pandemic, I am coming back to pandemic. During the pandemic, what did the state government do here? Community kitchen were run by the local governments, by Kudumbasri also. Then came Janagiya hotels. No, about 2000 Janagiya hotels were run by the government, and where they could get meals for 20 rupees. Not only that, the community kitchen served the unreached also. The most vulnerable people, bedridden, all those secluded people were catered to. The old age was catered to, and all those interventions were made. So what this reveals is that there is a system in the state to address poverty and hunger in the state. Nobody was left starving during the pandemic. This shows the institutional setup in the state. Why the other states could not do this? Why? They didn't have the institutional setup, the local government setup. Now all the states are moving towards that. People's Plan campaign. We started 25 years back. The institutional setup in the state, there is a state government which caters to the needs of the people, and below that the local governments is there to work according to the policies set by the state government. If the state government needs something to be done, you can just communicate. The local governments will take up. This is the institutional setup which helped us to overcome the pandemic situation. See, the state was vulnerable in all respects when pandemic hit our state. The first state to report COVID-19, isn't it? The first state to report pandemic. High density of population, reasonably high density of population. The mobility of people moving across the world was greater. So all these things, the aged population, how much now? Almost 23% of the people are now coming under aged population. So state was vulnerable in all respects for high mortality. But we could sustain because of the systems in the local governments, the PHCs, primary health centers. Now I am coming to the nutrition side. See, nutrition, we have to interfere a lot. Now we are addressing poverty, that is, we have reached 0.7%, but we can do that. As our chair has mentioned here, we are going to accomplish that. Most of the goals we can accomplish because of the localized system here. Here, the PHCs. The PHCs have, in the pandemic, PHCs have also done their role well, because the patient was addressed, every patient was observed, every patient was taken care of. The medicines were reached on time. So the service delivery system was worked in a robust way, so that we could the health aspects of the people were looked into in terms of COVID also. Not only that, we have a family monitoring system with PHC. Now I am coming to malnutrition and anemia, all those things. Kerala you might have heard about extreme poverty, isn't it? Eradication program, EPEP, extreme poverty eradication program of the state. You are reading newspapers and all. How many have been identified?
68.
And
68.
coming close to the figure. Gayatri has told a figure, an exact figure. So 64,006 people are identified in the state. See, in such a big state, identifying the people suffering from extreme poverty is a big task. So many surveys were conducted. Kudumbashree was entrusted to do that. Kudumbashree has conducted the survey after a lot of screening, so that no bias has come in. Then we have to check all those things. Favoritism or nothing has taken place. We went through a different steps of surveying, and we could identify 64,006 people, the people who need support. They are facing extreme poverty. And now the state government has taken up the caring, or taken up these people as the people who need support from the government. They will be provided immediate care, short-term, long-term care, like intermediate care. All those things are being planned in the local governments. These people are identified, and every person will get a micro plan for their upliftment from poverty. No other state in India could do this. Only Kerala could do this. This is the institutional mechanism. Nobody is left behind. Everybody is taken care of by the government. This is the approach the government is taking in terms of extreme. So extreme poverty will be eradicated from the state within these 5 years. We have a plan for that. The local governments are spearheading the plans, and we are confident that they will attain their goal of eradicating extreme poverty from the state. Regarding SDGs, we have a robust mechanism for capacity building. In localizing SDG, the most important thing is the capacity building and the advocacy programs and the communication IEC programs. That is conducted by KILA. KILA is doing it well. Now, when the local governments plan for SDGs, local indicator framework is being set, and they are now able to do their plans, or they could mainstream the SDG framework into their local government plans. Even the people's representatives and the officials could do it well, because such type of training was given to them, and SDGs are mainstreamed into the local government plans, and all the 17 goals are mainstreamed, and the targets and the schemes are mapped, and in such a way we are moving. So as the chair has mentioned, we are able to achieve the goals in a time bound manner. One more thing I want to mention is that in case of malnutrition, there are some vulnerable groups. The scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population and the fisher folk need special attention. It will be challenging also. So there we need more deliberate interventions there. And also women. And now other thing is that the food intake quality has to be improved. For securing nourishment to all, we should have some advocacy programs also. Our food intake habits have to be changed. And not the urban agriculture. We have to promote urban agriculture, especially among the poor. We are not focusing on that. There are gaps in agriculture. of course, what the colleges like you can do. Here, the local governments need support of the academia, but unfortunately, it is a standalone business. The education sector is not integrated with the development sector, or the local governments or the state governments. They are the research and extension services what the education institutions have to provide has to be provided. But in this time, the 14th 5-year plan and in the 13th and 14th 5-year plan, we could do something in this regard so that the local governments get the support of the academia and the academic institutions, especially the technical institutions and the other arts and science colleges also. Here, the issue of food sufficiency was a big issue during COVID. That time, I think HARILAL sir was spearheading that program. Subiksha Kerala was initiated in Kerala in most of the vegetables, and most of the vegetables, especially in vegetables, we could somehow attain self-sufficiency because we were depending on other states. COVID has blocked everything. Our transportation was blocked, conveyance was blocked in all respects. So we turned towards our cultivation, and it showed result also, because now it was negative growth 5 years back. Now we are in a positive growth in agriculture. We are hopeful that we can attain these things. So it's all the 17 goals are interlinked. These inside the every goal, the indicators are interlinked. So in that way we have to approach the sustainable development goal. So I am winding up here. Thank you.
Ma'am, my question was that you said that there is a shift in the world post and pre-pandemic period, and though we were aiming for meeting all the 17 sustainable development goals by 2030, now it perhaps seems a bit too ambitious for us, especially because many people who are even just in the middle income group have been pushed into poverty, and those who are already in poverty have been pushed into extreme poverty cases because of the pandemic, and also because of the recession that was present in the economy prior to that. And now there are signs that there is a danger of recession looming in the economy, which the IT companies too are signaling by firing many of their employees and not extending their contracts. So should we have a reorientation of our programs? Should there be a reconvening? Should we limit it to the first 10 SDGs, which are perhaps the most key SDGs to meet, and which are the most immediate goals to meet? And also when we speak about SDG 2 in particular, zero hunger, though we say that Kerala absolute poverty or absolute hunger in that sense is very low, several studies have pointed out that malnutrition is very high, which is a newer form of hunger. Though people are not having empty stomachs, they are not receiving the nutrient requirements that they do require. So they are not having a balanced diet. This can also lead to a decline in the health and well-being of the population. What should a state, as a next step of the welfare state, initiate to tackle these problems?
Ma'am, my query is like, you already told like the local government.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Vimal. I do my research at Kannur University. My query is like, you already told the local government have a good or more responsibility or role to perform in maintaining a sustainable environment at the ground level. Is it those institutions have enough resources to maintain that? If it is no, then the policy becomes a failure, right?
This is something that came up in the previous session. We had a discussion about tribal women and the challenges that they faced. So one of the conversation was about how the tribal children were left out during the supply of Amrita mix through Anganwadis. So such issues, so the previous session explained that such issues exist in Kerala, and that though we say that the hunger index is very low and the poverty index is very low, still there exist people who actually need food at least at one time a day. So, and I think that is a misconception because the tribal people have always been addressed and their condition have improved over the years. Such individual cases, should we take such individual cases as a general scenario of a state, or is that the actual scenario? That was something that could have misled us in the previous session. Ma'am, my name is Vishma. I also have a question related to hidden hunger.
You're from here? You're from?
Yeah, Thursday. So I have also a question related to hidden hunger. So, hidden hunger is extremely common in our country like India. So, my question is, how far the role of sustainable development were able to tackle this particular issue of hidden hunger, and also are we able to tackle this issue by 2030 in our sustainable development?
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Sneha Sajan. So my question is, how far the policy measures that are implemented in our country is open to all, not just men and women, but to transgenders, tribals, and everyone. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Wami Milimo. I'm a research scholar here. My question is on urban agriculture. How is urban agriculture attainable, in the sense that from my notice, let's say I'll give an example of Mumbai, where we have a lot of slum areas. So how are people in the slum areas who are in the urban able to do urban agriculture?
Just a query to HARILAL, sir. I think you have become more critical of the whole way the decentralized system of governance is working. Because earlier when we used to listen to you, we had thought that this system is going to be working more or less in a good way. But now, this time it was a different feeling that we got. And maybe as you become age, you become more critical. So, and you were speaking on the external forces, the forces outside the system that are hammering the situation. But what about the internal inconsistencies that are developing within the system? Because traveling across the different panchayats, we have felt that often it is the internal inconsistencies that are developing there. And it's also, you cannot generalize, because what we see in one panchayat may be entirely different from another panchayat. So there are panchayats which are becoming so successful for a term, but after that it is collapsing. So there are lots of mismatches that are happening, and how can, as a teacher, I give an answer to my students that this is going to be a solution to the whole issue of localization and those issues? How can we people fight that?
First question was what the recession and the consequent malnutrition, and what is done to curtail this malnutrition, and how can the local governments work in that. And that was about the resources of is that sufficient for the local governments? Is the resources of the local government sufficient to work on this? See, as you all know, our local governments receive about 27% of our state plan budgeted outlay. And moreover, the departments like agriculture, animal husbandry, dairy and other line departments, the implementation takes place in the local governments mostly. So altogether about 40% of the gross plan is implemented by the local governments. So now there is no resource crunch as such. They are able to do their duties and responsibilities in a much better way, because the State Finance Commission has given the report and it has been accepted or agreed by the Legislative Assembly also that every year 0.5% of the fund will be increased to the local governments. Now, there is a big issue here, because the fund from the Central Finance Commission, the devolution from the Central Finance Commission to the local governments is also accounted in this 27%. What is happening is that the Central Finance Commission fund is about almost 50% of tied nature. It is going to water and sanitation, and there is an approach that one size fits for all. Kerala has gone ahead in all these things. I don't think there is a household in Kerala without a water connection or a household well. But we have to do that. 50% of the fund has to go for these sectors. So this approach, in a federal system, the state has their own development needs. Most of the states have gone ahead in certain sectors, but this is not considered in the way the fund is flowed to the local governments. Devolution of funds. So this is a big issue what the local governments are facing. But still, in the guidelines, every 5 years we make a guidelines for the local governments. It will be following the basic approach of the state government, and the guidelines is that much flexible for them to intervene in all these areas. These are the critical areas: hunger and nutrition. The state government gives more importance in these sectors also. Now anemia, the family health survey has come up with a finding of different states about anemia and all those malnutrition aspects. Definitely the state government has taken it up, and now the local governments have taken up programs for addressing the anemia issues, malnutrition issues. Of course, ICDS has a big role in this. The Anganwadis are functioning in the state, but there needs more monitoring in that. ICDS fund is going, midday meal program is happening in the schools. Everywhere we have programs and it is being implemented also. Then what is happening in that we have to examine. The state government is also monitoring those aspects also. So definitely there is fund crunch in the local governments, but the state government always tries to give their shares in proper time on proper placing of funds to the local governments. Whatever financial crisis is there in the state, they are not suffered. But these are all, it's not alone the issue of funds, but there should be a better monitoring mechanism to, if we are trying to address this problem seriously, the entire system of the health department and the local government, LSED department and other departments of agriculture, every department is putting care in this or putting trust in this matter. So we are hopefully waiting for some better results in this. I am talking about hidden hunger also in that issue also. Another question, very pertinent question: the tribal women and children are left out about the Amritam. There is a basic issue in the state that we have to admit also. The social inclusion approach, that in the development process all should get the benefits, that is the slogan of the government, or that is the goal of the state government, that all should get the results of development. Here we have an SC department, here an ST department, separate department for ST also. And these departments work with considerable amount of funds. We are sharing, there are only 1.83 tribal percentage of tribal population in the state. Means that out of the total population, only 1.83 is the percentage is the tribal population. And about 9.1% is the SC population. And the TSP, the tribal supply and SCP funds are given for the departments and the local governments in a more than proportionate manner, above the more than proportionate of their population. And these departments are also working. But the issue is that there is an issue. ICDS, when we consider the working of Anganwadis, there are some shortage in the tribal areas because of many reasons. This is one of the reasons for the exclusion of the tribal children from Amritam project. But there is another program exclusively with the ST department, that is the food support program. And almost a big chunk of money is always earmarked. Every month the food is reached to the homes of the tribals, but the malnutrition aspect is greater among the tribal children and SC children also. And we were talking, one professor was talking to me 2-3 months back. When the children come into colleges also, they are undersized compared to the other children. The SC children and ST children are undersized. This is a big issue. This is part of what I have spoken earlier about the stunted and wastage. This has to be addressed. It's a very pertinent question what she has asked. It is a matter of social inclusion. It is a matter of concern of the government. So this is taken into consideration now. This year's budget. In this year's budget, there was a provision that wherever they lack Anganwadis, the department, not the ICDS, the department themselves, because in the case of ICDS, the Anganwadis have to be allowed from the center. That is the way they function. So this time, if the center is not providing Anganwadis in these areas, because there are some issues related to the norms. The 20 children norm is there won't be in that settlement, there won't be that much children. So we have written to the central government many times to relax the norms for the tribal children. But this has to happen. Now, this year in the state budget, in the state department, tribal department scheme, we have provided for that wherever they lack the Anganwadis, the department can start similar institutions in the urus, in the settlements for that, overcoming this. Okay, sir. Then one pertinent question, the inclusion, the matter of transgender. See, we have a transgender policy in Kerala. Nowhere in the world this transgender issue is addressed like this. Everywhere the transgender is mainstreamed in the our local government plan as well as the state plan. They have a department to look into that. The social justice department, there is a lot of programs for them. I think the visibility of the transgenders is increasing now. They are coming to the forefront. Their social inclusion is also increasing, but there are issues to be solved. Then urban agriculture. And one question has come, how can the people living in slums go for agriculture? That is a pertinent question. They lack land. Most of the people living there are belonging to scheduled caste people. Most of the slums when we examine. Here, now we have gone for fallow land agriculture. The lease land farming, Kudumbasri have started JLGs, joint liability groups in lease land farming. They are doing that now. Urban, in NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission and all, we have taken up this issue and we have to give more focus to this thing in this area also, urban agriculture. There are limitations in Kerala because of the land issues, but we try to make use of there is a policy under Subisha Kerala to make use of all the fallow land, and we can overcome this issue, but that is the reply for that. Other question is left to the internal consistencies, things sir will answer. Thank you.
So, thank you for all these questions. We hardly had 10 minutes, but from the floor, from using this 10 minutes to raise many interesting issues. And Josephine had tried to answer most of the questions. Given the time constraint, she had to be very brief in answering the questions. I don't think there is considerable points left. I'll just respond to Professor Manju's question. Yeah, I sounded a bit pessimistic, that is true. While reflecting after her question, I also accept that I was sounding a little bit pessimistic. But I think there is a reason for this. Okay, when you take a family, as a family we try to solve our problems. We cannot complain about government policy, new economic policy, liberalization. They are all given facts. Given those circumstances, we will try to manage our affairs. Similarly, a panchayat or a city corporation or state government. We have many limitations imposed on the local government, many limitations imposed on the nation state or the regional government. Within those limitations we try to do our best in achieving our goals. Goals within the defined for the family or goals like SDG at the level of local governments and at the level of state government. But at the same time, it's very important to discuss about forces which upset all these calculations. Particularly in Department of Economics, when we discuss SDG, it has been our tradition to discuss those things, like what is happening in Ukraine, that war, how it is causing poverty problems all over the world. Nearly 40 countries are in great trouble after the Ukraine war. And then immediately after the war, the Federal Reserve started increasing the interest rates. And the whole capital markets is in disarray. Exchange rates are changing all over the world, creating all kinds of tensions everywhere. And along with that, and even prior to that, over a long period of time, we know as economists, economic inequality is growing like anything. And that economic inequality is creating problems of growth, crisis, etc. The whole process of growth cannot be discussed independently of the growing inequality. So these are global headwinds which determine our well-being and our ability to address many of these issues. That's where I'm saying increasingly regional governments, national governments, local governments, etc. are losing their ability to control their own situation, livelihood of people there. And that loss of policy space is very important. And it's very important for us to discuss this. Like a state government, for example, how can it discriminate among different type of producers? Like you want to favor some activity, environmentally more acceptable activity. You want to promote that. Can you give a tax concession? You don't have any more of that maneuverability with the GST system. The state government cannot support Nyavara by giving tax concession. Any economic activity for that matter, you don't have a tax policy tool available with the state government. And that is happening in a big way. And it's also a problem which can be seen at the nation state level also. When you say that the fiscal limit is there, certain kind of policies will have to be followed, that policy space is very badly getting affected. So as social scientists, we have the responsibility. And those who say that SDG is such a great thing, they should also say, we are announcing all this SDG, but the global system is making less and less room available for policy makers at the nation level or even subnational level. That's the point I wanted to address, and I think as social scientists we have this responsibility. So thank you for the time, and once again let me congratulate Professor Manju, because the state government is starved of money, and Manju is finding resources from NABARD and various other agencies, organizing these things. And this is what universities can do. In fact, funds are available here and there. We should be looking for such resources. And this is a great learning experience for students. And this is the kind of advantage that Chairperson students should be getting. Because when you have other activities, not regular MA classes and research presentations. When you come across these kind of activities, you get exposure, and that will not be directly beneficial, but indirectly in different ways it will be empowering you. With that, let me close. Thank you again for the opportunity.